Welcome to The Explainer. You know that favorite band t-shirt you have? Well, there's a good chance it was made using this really cool blend of art and chemistry. Today, we're going to peel back the layers on that exact process. Hand screen printing.
At first glance, it seems pretty simple, right? You've got a screen, some ink, and a squeegee. But when you look closer, you can see there's a real art to it. The magic really is all in the details, how these simple tools come together to create something amazing.
All right, so here's what we're going to cover. We'll start with the basics. What even is screen printing? Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of prepping the screen, actually bringing the designs to life, and the tools you need to do it. And to wrap it all up, we'll talk about when hand printing is the right call for a project. Okay, first up, what is screen printing, really? Let's get down to the basic principle. Okay, so the best way to think about it is like a really sophisticated stencil. But here's the key difference. You're not cutting anything out. Instead, the design is chemically set onto a mesh screen. And that's the secret sauce that lets you make these super sharp, consistent prints over and over again. All right, now for what is maybe the most critical part of the whole process. This is where the chemistry and the craft really come together, preparing the perfect screen. So the big question is, how do you get something from your computer, a digital design, onto a physical screen as a stencil? Well, the answer is all about some pretty cool chemistry. It all boils down to this four-step process. First, you stretch a polyester mesh super tight on a frame. Step 2, you coat that screen with a special light-sensitive chemical called emulsion. Then, step 3, you put your design on it and blast it with a strong light. And finally, you wash it out. And what's left behind is your stencil. You got to get every single one of these steps just right, or the final print just won't work. So that light-sensitive chemical, the photoemulsion, here's how it works. And this is the really clever part. Wherever the light hits it, it hardens up and becomes insoluble in water. But where your design blocks the light, that emulsion stays soft. So when you wash it, poof, it just rinses away, leaving the open mesh of your stencil, a perfect copy of your design. Okay, we've got our screen ready. Now for the fun part. Let's see how we actually bring those designs to life. All right, this is where it all comes together. You lay your screen down on the fabric and you put a nice bead of ink at one end. Then you take your squeegee and in one smooth, firm motion, you pull it across the screen. That pressure forces the ink through those open parts of your stencil and right onto the fabric. It's all about practice. Getting that pressure and the angle of the squeegee just perfect is key. Now you might be wondering, what about designs with lots of colors? Well, that's where things get really interesting. You actually have to create a separate screen for every single color in the design. So you'll print one color, dry it with some heat, then very carefully line up the next screen and print the next color. You just keep layering them up, one by one, until you have the final full color image. Okay, so you get the process now, but let's dig a little deeper into the tools, because this is how a printer really dials in the final look. We're talking about the two big variables, the mesh and the squeegee. So you hear people talk about different mesh counts for screens, but what's the actual difference between a coarse mesh and a fine one? Does a higher number mean bigger holes or smaller? Let's clear that up. It's actually pretty simple when you break it down. Think of it like this. A lower mesh count, like 100, has bigger holes. It's more open. That's perfect for big, solid designs where you want to lay down a lot of ink. But for a design with super fine lines and tiny details, you need a higher mesh count, maybe a 300. The holes are much smaller and closer together, which lets you get that crisp, precise detail without the ink bleeding everywhere. And it's not just the screen that matters. The squeegee itself is a super important tool. Its hardness, which is called its durometer, actually controls how much ink gets pushed through the screen. It's not just a handle with a piece of rubber, it's a precision instrument. So, check this out. It all depends on what you're trying to do. If you want a really thick layer of ink, say for special effects like puff prints or glitter, you'd grab a soft squeegee, like a 60 durometer. On the flip side, for those super detailed designs, you need a hard squeegee, an 80, to lay down a nice, thin, crisp layer of ink. And that one in the middle, the 70, that's kind of your all-purpose go-to squeegee for most standard jobs. Okay, so we've seen all the craft and technique that goes into this, but that brings up a big question. When is hand printing actually the right way to go? Well, there are some pretty big advantages. For one, it's really economical for smaller print runs. The equipment is pretty simple and low cost to get started with. You can use a ton of different colors, and you can even print on things like cut garment pieces before they're sewn together. It's also super adaptable for different kinds of fabrics. It's just flexible, perfect for artists or small brands who want quality without a huge factory set. But on the other hand, it's not perfect for everything. Because it's done by hand, well, it's slow. It's definitely not the way to go for huge production runs of thousands of shirts. You can also get some slight color variations from batch to batch, and certain designs, like really fine paisley or lengthwise stripes, can be super tricky to get right. It's just not built for that kind of industrial scale.
So if you take away one thing, it should be this basic formula. Your design tells you which tools to use. A fine design needs a fine mesh and a fine or hard squeegee. A big, solid blotch design, that needs a coarser mesh and, as it says here, a coarser squeegee, which really means a softer squeegee to push more ink. See how it all works together?
So now that you know the formula, it kind of makes you think, right? From a simple logo on a t-shirt to a super complex piece of art on fabric, the possibilities are pretty endless. So what's the first thing you'd want to print? Thanks for watching.